Hey.
So Cambridge, I can update you later. So it's good.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Hi, Chris.
Hi, folks.
Hey guys. How you doing, Chris? How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was good. It was good. You?
Yeah, I can't hear you. It's weird.
Can you hear me, Angela?
Yes, I can.
Okay. You froze, I think.
Yeah, Udi.
Yep.
We heard you for 1 second, I think. You seem to be back, or no? But now we can't hear you.
Am I still frozen? Cool.
No, all good, but we have an echo when you speak. The sound seems to be different.
Rory, if you could put your microphone on mute, please.
Now it's good.
Yeah. There we go. It's so yeah, excited about today. And we've got our first person joining us now. Chris, you got the invite, right, for Friday?
Friday. What's happening Friday? Sorry.
My birthday.
Oh, yeah, that one. Yes, I got it.
Yeah.
Just need to check my schedule.
Sure.
And a lot of things I'm looking at. So thank you for the invite, first of all.
You're welcome. No stress or pressure. It'll be good to see you guys in a non-work environment.
For sure. Even though I think we're pretty fun as Microsoft, right? We have a lot of
yeah, very fun. I speak to Microsoft more than any company in the world.
Yeah.
I actually think working with you guys, you're a good advertisement for applying or joining the team ever. So it's definitely very good. And Anne-Claire and I were talking about some of the events we're doing in the future. So I also wanted to pick your brain on that. So not now, because this is a very, very public forum, but yeah, exciting days. We had really good feedback, Chris, on last week. And I still have to put 3 more pieces of information, data sets, but I think you were really succinct and your pacing was very good. And a lot of people, especially the tech people, were very, very much felt that they had new ideas and they learned a lot more about Azure. So I think I'm really looking forward to today.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds really good. Yeah, I really look forward to hear about all the different quote statements. I'm sure we can use those as we always trying to identify what the right content is and for who. So
yeah.
In terms of future events, would love to hear from your cohort also what they want to see more about, because every cohort is different. Great. We have a few joiners. How do you think for attendees today? Is it 20 plus, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think we'll probably hit 15 to 20. Based on what everyone said. There were more than 40 people who said they were interested. So let's see. Hi, Alex. How's it going?
Hi, nice to meet you again.
Yeah, nice. It's been a while. I haven't seen you since Taylor. Was it Taylor Wessing's November? No, Stability. No, Harry Berg's workshop. That's the one.
Yeah, indeed. I transitioned jobs, and so I was quite busy with getting used to the new one. That's why. But I try to attend as many as I can moving forward.
Are you in Romania right now?
Yeah. Still in Bucharest, but I'm doing back and forth, Bucharest, York, London. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, hopefully see you in person as well as others from the community. Hi, Carolina. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. Nice to meet you, everyone. Yes, I made it. Yeah.
Yeah. Where are you calling from, Carolina?
I'm in near Monmouth, England. So kind of in Wales, in England side, like in the border.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'm going fishing there in a few weeks, so quite excited. Wales is quite pretty. Hey, Utkarsh, how's it going?
Hello there, everyone. It's going well. How are you all?
Yeah. So sorry I'm doing this with everyone who's got the camera on, but it's the most engaged we've had it so far. So it's been good. You, Alex, and Carolina have been fantastic to roll with the punches of me putting you on the spot. But we're just going to get started in a couple more minutes. We've got Chris here from Microsoft and Claire. For those of you who haven't been to one of Chris's talks, Chris is a fantastic speaker. He's very, very interested in trying to take the perspective that is most helpful, and even at I would argue at the detriment to Microsoft itself. And Claire has been an epic support. We've done so much with her this year, so very, very excited about all of this. And I think essentially, today's talk is about business, specifically looking at how to. I think when Chris and I were talking about this, and Chris, please chime in if you feel otherwise or you want to add on. We noticed, especially in the earlier rounds in the competition, in the community, that a lot of people would benefit from a workshop like this. And so, no surprise that there's been such a great interest. I think this was, in terms of subscriptions, people signing up for it, we hit over 50 in total. So that's like the most popular we've had so far. And next week, storytelling is equally popular. So now my name is Uday. I am the president of Oxbridge-AI Challenge and Oxbridge-AIx, but I'm also the lead for the entrepreneurship hub at Ox.ai, which is, such a mammoth of a society. It's completely transformed my life being part of it in the past year. So very excited to give the mic to Chris Norring from Microsoft.
All right, Uday, huge thank you for that intro. And yes, we at Microsoft, we always try to kind of support you a lot where you are. And we do understand that you are in different places with technology, with business, with storytelling. So hopefully this series of workshop is kind of, prop you up to a point where you're able to build your dreams. That's always what I try to say. But the fact that I'm in awe of many of you because you're very, very brave. You're taking your ideas, you're running with it, and you're able to do something with yourselves as part of this incubator and maybe even outside of it. But without further ado, let me share my screen, or maybe I'm able to present, I think, from the PowerPoint itself. Let's see here. There, hopefully that works. So there's a bit of a mix of things today, because I know that you all are signing up for a workshop which tends to have some interactive elements. So hopefully there are some places within this presentation where you feel like there's something for you to do. Because I just don't want to broadcast a lot of information. I know many of you might be fatigued after listening to me for a full hour, but hopefully you feel there's some good gotchas at various parts in this presentation where you feel like, oh, here's something for me to do. So you either do it live with me or you do so in your own time. So without further ado, this is a business workshop, a know-how for startups. So I know many of you might be in a position where you maybe are a tech founder, or you don't know anything about business, or you're just generally curious to see what kind of help can I get with the business side of my startup. So today we thought we'd talk about your business model, and your value prop. What kind of value are you adding versus all the other businesses that exist out there? And then, of course, your customers, right? The very thing that actually keeps you in business, because you have someone who's ready and willing to pay for whatever you're trying to offer. And then the other part that we all know that we need to talk about sooner or later: how are you making money? Most businesses are for profit, even though there are other ways, of course, to get funding. And then maybe the most important, depending on where you are today, how will you actually take your fantastic idea, your tech MVP, and bring that out to the market, to the general public, so they're able to say, oh, what a fantastic service company or whatever kind of offer that you have. And of course, we want these customers to sign up for that. So you might be wondering why I'm here today, right? I'm Chris, senior advocate at Microsoft. Why is Microsoft talking to me about the business side of things? What's our kind of stake in the game? Well, we have something called Microsoft Founders Hub. This is an incubator. Some of you in Oxbridge is already part of it, but what we are trying to offer is various types of support to make sure that your business is able to soar. Meaning that we give you access to software, to expert networks that MVPs and Microsoft permanent employees have signed up to help you, and also a bunch of cloud credits. If you take your startup through all 4 stages, you will at most be able to access over $150,000. So just imagine having your cloud costs covered for perhaps many years ahead. And then, of course, if you actually feel like applying and you feel like there's inherent value in all this, just go to aka MS Founders-Hub, and then you will find more about how to sign up. And you can sign up with LinkedIn. Now, so I'm making some assumptions today of who you are listening. I know that some of you are tech founders, so you might feel like, oh, this is the business side of things, I should probably listen. Or maybe you actually know the business side, but maybe not for startups. And maybe you're also thinking about what should I be doing in what order? Right, so if some of you have your phones out already, I would just have a look at these links or QR codes, or if you're looking at some kind of recording of this presentation, now is a good time to kind of check out these links. You can also see at the bottom left here that I'm doing a attempted summary of the offers within Founders Hub. So 150K cloud credits, 2,500 OpenAI credits, expert networks. There are thousands of people within that network, one-to-one mentoring. So you can see all that help that you can get for your startup just by simply applying. And yes, because we're talking business today, I've kind of yanked out some of these business offerings that you may not know exist within these offers. We got LinkedIn Sales Navigator Core, there's LinkedIn Premium Business, LinkedIn Ads. All of these are free, and some of them unlock at various stages throughout your membership as part of Founders Hub. So that could also be good to know. But as you can see, there are a lot of things that kind of helps bootstrap you and your business. Right, so you have a startup, right? And maybe you have already built a tech MVP, or maybe you have a napkin, right? It's very popular within startups to say, I got a napkin for an idea, or maybe I took a photo of a thing, or you've done some very early work maybe. So one of the first things that you should be looking at for a startup is to validate your idea, right? Because you have this notion that, oh, this must be a perfect idea, but then you realize that maybe you shouldn't use yourself as a data point, right? Or maybe not even your friends, or maybe you yourself, your friends, your family, all of them are saying, oh, that's a fantastic idea. Please keep building that, Chris, right? But at this point, your journey starts, and the more time you spend here, the less you will need to pivot later on. Because if you're able to interview a bunch of people about the pros and cons of what you're trying to do, if you're able to create a very small MVP that provides some value, you're able to easily change that into something else if you feel like there's no attachment towards that specific implementation. And honestly, one of the best advices I can give you is to just create and launch a static landing page. You have an idea, you want to describe that, and you want to see if you're getting some kind of traction, either on social media or maybe just general, traffic. Because that's a very low cost effort that you can do even with something like GitHub Pages or Azure Static Web Apps, for example. Just host that page somewhere and see if people are willing to say, I want to know more, I want to sign up to your newsletter, or some other ways that they can come back to you. See if there's excitement, because you might have 5 or 10 very similar ideas, but you can just put them next to each other with different static pages and see what sticks. And I know many of you already know this, but I think it's worth saying that early on, before you even do any kind of development, just see if you are offering something that people find valuable. And of course, you could be calling on the phone. I don't know how many people actually use your phone as a phone these days, or if it's mostly text and messaging, but that's one way of doing it. Another one is email outreach, but the general idea is to test things out, right? Test the waters, test pitching in front of, friendly people, maybe user groups. Try to assess what the feedback is, the excitement coming back, and re-aim, right? oftentimes with startups, we talk about re-aim because we might have a fantastic idea, but sometimes we're kind of missing the dartboard, right? And we kind of need to re-aim that core idea somewhere else. It's funny how things work out sometimes, but if you're very scientific about this, you will find the exact right angle, and be prepared to do this a few times as well. Right, so you've gone through this early validation, hopefully, and you feel like you have something. It feels like people are very excited about the thing that you're trying to build, maybe your PowerPoint slides or your static page, or they are even looking at your tech MVP, and everyone you're showing to is like, yes, I would totally buy that, Chris, right? So what happens next? You think you have something, you've even built something, you have something to show people, and it almost looks like a real thing, or maybe it even is a real thing. Describing your business, that's the next step, right? Because at this point, you need to try to envision how this goes from some kind of tech MVP that maybe it's a mobile app or a web page or what have you. And you need to say, well, if I'm treating this as a real business, if I'm going to have a sporting chance of actually being able to live off of this, I need to think business model. And the business model is really the idea of having a framework that describes how your company creates something, how it delivers something, and how it captures value. Because if you're able to clearly identify what the value is for your customers, the customers will hopefully see that value and say, this is worth paying for. Right, so with a business model, we're looking to understand how a business makes money. We are also looking to describe how you interact with customers, with suppliers, and with partners. So once you try to figure that out or dare ask that question out loud, you might not have all the answers today, but start thinking about it, right? If you're gonna use partners in the future, what could that look like? I mean, of course, one of the earliest thing you're gonna think about is customers, right? If I have a customer, how are they acting? If I have suppliers, who are they? How am I gonna interact with them? And then, of course, if you're looking specifically at startups, one of the earliest things that you need to look at is the viability of what you're trying to do. And when I say viability, it's really a general feeling for, do I have a business or do I have a tech MVP? It's a huge difference, right? Because as soon as you start saying, well, I have a fantastic business and a tech MVP, but the tech MVP doesn't need to be all that fancy, because honestly, if there are great people surrounding it, you can just quickly switch that tech MVP from a mobile app to a website or what have you, as long as you have a core business, right? So in that viability description of things, that you should have a description of what your product or service is. You should describe your target market. You should know more about your target market than your customers. You should know about competitors. Who else is trying to do what you're trying to do? And do you also have the right price? What if you're selling mobile apps and you're charging either too little or too much, right? How would you know? And you would know this, of course, by mapping out your competitive landscape or who you perceive to be a competitor. And then, of course, revenue streams. There are many, many different ways of making money. Maybe you're just thinking, well, if I sell this app, I get money in, but maybe there are other ways. Maybe there are other ways that you could be making money on. So I just want you to have a slow think. Hopefully I'm generating some thoughts as you're listening to this about revenue streams. What did Chris say? Is there more than one way that I could be making money? And of course, once you come to a point as a business, you have to think about scale. Like maybe you've landed your first customer, maybe you're even first 10 customers, but how am I going to reach 1,000? Am I doing things the exact same way, or did I actually pivot to use a different strategy to get where I need to be? So think about one customer, 1,000 customers, and maybe 100,000 customers. Am I doing things the same? So there are different ways of figuring this out, but having a strategy, having some kind of description for how to scale and what that means for you is important. And let me just talk about some kind of example so it becomes more tangible. So let's say that you're trying to sell clothes and shoes online. I mean, it might not sound like the most exciting ideas, but a lot of startups are not exciting, but they're very efficient, right? And there's a lot of different permutations here, right? So even though on paper selling clothes and shoes might sound like a done thing, the way you do it can be very unique, right? And you can create a fantastic customer experience. So looking at this kind of business, here I've laid out what the pricing should be like, how I would distribute these things, maybe via a website or mobile app. I'm talking about how I'm doing marketing, how customer service should function. And maybe you even haven't gotten that far in your head where you're thinking about, well, I got customers buying these shoes, but customer service, hold up. Am I gonna have an email? You know, is there a process? Am I doing this? Do I need to hire someone? And then, of course, payment, right? The startup will accept various types of payment. Okay, great. So you're trying to figure that out. So credit cards, debit cards, maybe there are other ways that people could pay me. And then, of course, what kind of technology am I running here, right? Is there I mean, some of you might be here for just the business side of things. So you're like, yeah, Chris, I got a CTO. They're going to build this in whatever framework. It's going to be a mobile app, right? But even if you don't care because you're the CEO and you have a CTO, it's kind of good to know the pros and cons of what you're choosing and why, because that might actually affect who you can hire in the future. So if you choose some obscure technology or framework, your talent pool is this small, right? So try to select something that makes sense, that enables you to scale when it comes to hiring people in the future. And now let's get interactive, right? Because otherwise it's a lot of like Chris is talking and talking and talking, and can't he just stop talking? So what I thought we'd do, and I don't know how many of you have access to Microsoft Edge, but if you have ChatGPT, this is a good moment to pop up ChatGPT. And yeah, what I thought everyone could do that wants to participate in this interactive activity is to use an AI assistant and try to write in the following prompt. Suggest the business model for my company, and at this point you're adding some context. I have a business that ... See if I can actually share my screen for that moment. Yes, I can. So let's do that, everyone. I'm going to share my screen and you can see for yourself how that would work. Hopefully you all see my screen at this point. Right.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Yes. So here we're looking at Microsoft Bing. I have gone in, I'm using Edge as well, and I'm logged in here as a user, and I'm able to use Copilot. So I've gone from the search bar and clicking this Copilot thing. And here you can type whatever you want to type. And this is a fantastic way, right? Because you could pick up a lot of business books and you can type a lot of prompts, but suggest a business model for my company that sells soaps, right? Soap might not sound like the most exciting topic out here, but just knowing that you have an AI tool that can help you think, your thinking partner, can save you a lot of time. So now Copilot is able to find content out there. It's able to also format the output in such a way that it makes it easy for you to create your pitch deck or just help you to learn more. So here you can see how it's talking about various aspects that you could be talking about. And it's still generating, so let's give it a second. But you can also see how it offers various links so that you can see where did this information come from, so I can validate it, but also so that you can learn more. So in looking at this now, what am I getting back for business model? It says, well, describe how to make soap. Okay. Develop a unique formula. Okay, that sounds fair enough. Get the necessary equipment. So this is really a stage or some kind of instruction for me how to get things done, right? Build your brand. That might not be something you do the very first thing as a startup, but definitely somewhere along the line. So the more brand recognition, the more sales you'll have probably. And how to set up your business and how you can offer different kind of products. So now it's just making things up. Different fragrances, for example, that could be a good idea. Different ways to distribute this via shops, department stores, and so on. So just please treat Copilot in this case or ChatGPT as your thinking partner for various stages of your business. And know that these tools are kind of free for you to use. So please try to work smart in these matters. So let's go back to presenting things in Teams again, but hopefully that was an interesting little thing. I don't know how many of you actually did this with me or not, but just knowing, yeah, thumbs up, fantastic. So yeah, so now we've been smart about things, right? We know a little bit more about our business model. If we like what we're seeing, fantastic. If we don't like, try to reprompt. And let's see where we actually were with this interaction. Right. So past this, we could be using a tool called a canvas, a business canvas. And the idea with a business canvas is that it's an entrepreneurial tool, right? And it helps you visualize, it helps you develop and document your business model. So it's a visual chart that you should be filling in for your business. And it has various elements to it, like value proposition, infrastructure, customers, finance, and so on. So I don't know how many of you have heard of the tool Business Canvas, but it's definitely worth checking into because it's a very nice way to kind of lay out and describe your business. And as an entrepreneur, it definitely helps you focus in the sense that it enables you to identify key activities, how to prioritize your resources, and how to identify new opportunities, right? Because we always need to be on our feet. We need to think and rethink because, you know, if there's an opportunity coming by, we want to grab it and say, this is a pivot that we want to do because we think we can develop the business further. And let's make this more tangible. Let's make this more real by looking at a web production company. There are many such companies, right? A lot of companies out there that produces something on the web. And what you want to find out at this point is, for example, a customer segment. That we'll talk more about customer segment later in this workshop. But the idea is to identify who are you selling things to. So is that other small businesses? Is it startups? Is it bloggers and so on? So do you really understand who your customers are? And then you got the value proposition, right? A value proposition is very important because you're able to identify the core value that you're bringing. So the question is if you can take any random company out there and say, I know exactly what Pizza Hut has value offer, or you know, Uber or whatever company. That's also a very interesting exercise that we could be doing. But as you can see, it keeps on listing other things that's important, the various channels, the customer relationships, the revenue streams, and so on. So just knowing from this tangible example, what does Chris mean when he says business canvas? Just look at this example, try to adopt it and adapt it to your company. And this is a very important slide. Value proposition. And because you're literally asking, why choose my business? Why choose my product? And as I said, let's take some real examples so we understand what we mean by value prop, because this is a term that people are throwing around. You're like, yeah, I think I'm adding value because I see people buying it. But are you clear? Are you clear about the value that you are bringing to the table? So with Airbnb, right? We see that the value is to offer travelers a unique and affordable way to stay in a unique accommodation. So the value prop here is very different from that of a hotel, which some people might find constricting and boring, right? But if you actually go into Airbnb, you pay to live where someone actually has a home. It becomes a very different experience. Or if you're looking at, for example, Spotify, the value prop here is that you're offering users access to a vast library of music and podcasts. So ask yourself this, can I actually create a one sentence that describes the value proposition of my company? If I can't, maybe now is the time to think about it. So moving on about value proposition. So let's talk about that you have an AI company that runs, you are a startup, you are trying to provide mentors. And you can see here that there's a ton of different values that you could be offering all of these customers, right? Because it speeds up the learning for your end user, it boosts their confidence, it provides emotional support and so on. But you don't have to be equally good at all of these. These are just possible properties that constitutes your value proposition. So try to focus, I would say, on maybe 3 or 4 things that you think you can do really well. But this is just an example of how, in reality, a value prop can be 20 plus properties. And 2 on very similar businesses running as some kind of mentor operation, they could be very different because they choose to focus on the 3 different value propositions. So don't feel like you are in a stark competition with another company if you feel like, well, you know what, Chris, they're actually focusing on professional growth and speeds learning, but I'm focusing on different things within the same segment. So don't worry about your company being in direct competition with things that already exist. Just make sure that you are unique. That's the message. So I'm talking a lot. I want to make sure that this is an interactive experience for you. So I thought I'd borrow Uday. Are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Do you have do you have ChatGPT or maybe Copilot?
Yeah, I did, and I follow the prompt. I'm not entirely. I'm going to create another one because I'm not entirely sure I want to share this. But actually, I mean, I could do. I put it in the prompt for what we're trying to build with Oxbridge-AIx. I'm guessing you want me to share what it said.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe you can adjust this prompt to fit your needs. So maybe you can write something that, hey, I'm trying to build Oxbridge. This is who we are. What's our value prop? What's the value that you're offering to the people in this program? So I'm kind of curious if you feed that into ChatGPT, what the response is.
I'm asking the question, what is a value proposition? And
just give it some context and say, hey, I'm running a student incubator. What is the value proposition?
Yes. So everyone just explain, if you're already not familiar, as part of OxAI and Q, we started Oxbridge-AI Challenge last year, and that's kind of growing into a spin-off called Oxbridge-AIx, which is becoming an accelerator as well. We're continuing the competition and incubation through the challenge this year ahead. So I explained that to ChatGPT, and in addition to them suggesting some revenue models in terms of value proposition, their suggestion was empowering tomorrow's innovators, unlocking potential for early stage startups with tailored support, access to ecosystem, affordable solutions, and proven success given a competition.
Great. Thank you so much, Uday, for your help here. Yeah, so
You're
as
welcome.
you can see, you can keep on working with your chosen AI tool. It doesn't have to be Copilot. It can be ChatGPT, but please use that as your thinking partner because, as you can see, a lot of these prompts are easy to do, right? They're easy to write and you get that instant response within seconds. So hopefully, if you aren't using this today for your business, I would say that's the #1 thing to start doing. Now, positioning is another thing because this is slightly connected to your value proposition. And the idea with the positioning is that you understand where you sit in the market because you're in the process of creating an image or an identity for your brand, for your product, for your service. You understand, okay, I got a skincare startup maybe. So who are my competition and what's their value proposition and how are they positioning themselves? And this is important because it helps customers to say, well, I should go to Uday's business instead of Chris's business because this is how he positions and these are my needs. So you're helping your customers by being very clear, right? And you are creating thereby a unique identity and you help that to resonate with those of your customers. And it helps you build the brand, it helps you build loyalty and trust because the more they understand who you are and who you're not, the easier it is for them to say, I like what Uday is offering, I'm buying what he's selling. Now, I just wanted to show you quickly here about positioning because there's a way to do it well and there's a way to do it badly. So a good positioning is focused. It emphasizes the company's commitment and it's very clear and concise. So you can see here on the left side how we have a good example where we say our company is the leader in providing innovative medical technology solutions that enable healthcare providers to improve patient outcomes. So it has a lot of good things going for it, right? This positioning statement. But if you look at the bad one, you see that, well, our company provides the best medical technology solutions on the market. And it's not really clear what benefit this has to the end user, the customer, right? So please use this slide to see, make sure it's focused, make sure it's emphasizing and talking about the patient's outcome or whatever outcome you have for your customer. And it's written in a clear and concise way. So please use these two examples to say either good positioning or it can be improved. Right. So here's something you can do. I'm not going to ask Uday to do this again, but I just want to make sure as you're looking through this, as you're looking through the slides, maybe now as part of a recording or afterwards, make sure that you get in the habit of using ChatGPT or Copilot and just keep on asking it these things, right? It goes so much quicker if you have that thinking part and that can respond to you. But just imagine in this case, right? I am using it as a positioning tool. So I'm able to say, I'm running a medtech startup that uses AI to generate new medicinal drugs. I want to suggest a good way to position my company versus competition. So this is homework for you all. So please do the homework for your own sake and make sure that you have a very strong positioning for your company So you provide that clarity towards your customers and yourself. So you know what you're doing versus not doing and where you sit in the market. Now moving forward, let's do a short little summary of key activities so far, because if you've done all the things in the slides, you've done a lot, right? You should be proud of yourself if you've done all the things I've described so far, because you've done a validation process, right? You've done the market research, so you understand why your idea is good. You definitely have a lot of user quotes, maybe even expert quotes to speak to say, Carolina, this is a perfect solution, for example, right? Or Chris, this is a, yeah, I really like what you're trying to go with things here. But you are researching the target market, and you know, as part of that validation process, you have done some competitor analysis, which is, you know, great, because you know what's out there, you know how much they're charging, you know what features they have versus don't have. Maybe you have some kind of early customer feedback, or someone that's able to give you feedback and say, this Figma sketch was great, or this tech MVP could be improved in this and that way. And I also want to make sure that you understand where your resources are allocated, because if you spend a lot of time doing things that don't matter, that's a problem, right? So try to find that focus on the things that matter the most. And most of all, never stop experimentation. I'm sure that many of you on this call already have tried various things that don't work. And one of the biggest values out there is knowing exactly that. What are the 99 things that don't work? And I think there's a statement from Alexander Graham Bell when he said something to the effect of, yeah, I've found out 200 ways of not making a light bulb. And just knowing how to not do it, you learn so much in that process. So never see it as failure. Failure is when you stop trying. When you don't stop trying, you haven't failed yet, right? Because you're learning. So please see all kind of startup, all kind of attempts and trying and experimentation as you learning more. Let's talk about your customer, right? Because after all, you're doing this for someone, right? So when it comes to your customer, as I said, if you've already done the validation step of your startup and want you to do that on step 1 before you do too much, you've done some market research. You've used social media maybe to pull people in. You've used your network, maybe your extended network, to talk to a lot of people, to partners, to investors, and maybe you used some online tools to get there. And you know, other things that you could be doing also is to get help with marketing, with sales, because here's the thing with a startup, and I know that you all know this, you need to be the jack of many trades, right? You need to know a little bit of business, a little bit of tech, a little bit of marketing before you have that time to hire all the people you would love to hire. And of course, a mentor. Like that's definitely something we can offer within Founders Hub, and especially if you talk to various experts. And don't be shy when it comes to asking for mentors, right? Because you will only get if you ask. So that, you know, a lot of people will actually say yes to being your mentor. Right. So let's talk about customer segment again, because I mentioned that initially, right? And as part of knowing more about your customers, it might be a bit of a more detailed story than you think, right? So if you got 100 people actually buying your product, what do you know about these groups, or what do you know about this cohort? I can bet you that they are a very varied group of people, but they might have some properties in common. And the more you learn that there are subgroups within the customers that buy your product, the better you can foresee what features you should have, what areas are important, and what not to do. One of the most important things I can tell you from 20 years of building software in general is that one learns to be better at saying no and saying yes to the right things. So like, it's almost like your default stance should be no, that's not who my product is, or my company is, or who I want to be. So try to identify properties that helps identify these customer segments. So that could be, for example, that, hey, you know what, you're selling this app maybe to a group of 18, 24-year-olds. They live in an urban area and they care about outdoor activities. But imagine that you have a completely different customer segment and you want to add a feature for them. So customer segments are important. That's really the message I'm giving here. So start thinking also about customer relation, because some of you might not even have customers. You might have letter of intents, or maybe you spoke to a few people, but you don't have a paying customer yet. But the moment you do, think about how you're going to make sure that this becomes a relation. It doesn't mean that you need to have one-to-one time with every single customer, right? But think about how you can make that experience great for them. What does it look like for them to onboard to your company? Are you creating a loyalty program? Are you giving them a reason to come back to you? Could you be using social media to make sure that you build some hype or some kind of nice fuzzy feeling around your brand? And most of all, how do you provide excellent customer service? Are you actually available on email, on phone, on social media? Are there ways to create champions within your customers, for example, so you can delegate some of that? So just think about what the customer experience should look like. And most of all, think about companies where you think they do a great job already with customer relations. That's maybe something that you want to emulate. So I've written a lab here because I want you to think about a business that you interact with. So this is a homework for all of you. I want you to think about, and please identify a few companies where you have a great experience with these companies, and think about why that is. Is it because they're always available? Do they have a great chatbot? Do you just love the newsletters? What is it? And also think about companies that you don't like and see what they're doing wrong, and just start comparing notes and see, well, this company would be great if they actually added a newsletter, or they answered whatever query I have within 3 days instead of 3 weeks. So just think about, treading that line between great and bad. So I'm going to have this as a homework for all of you. So if you want to, I'm going to leave the slide for a few seconds. But Uday, if I can borrow you again, could you tell me about the company you really like when it comes to a business that you interacted with, and what do you like about them?
Sure, Chris. I mean, it's a tricky one.
Sorry, I think you disappeared a little bit.
I guess very simple. Okay. Can you hear me? Chris,
No,
can you hear
your
me?
connection is breaking down, Uday.
Okay.
I think it's
all
better
right.
now. Maybe try.
I was just gonna go super simple and talk about my shoes, right? So I have these boots by Echo, and it's a Danish company that basically specializes in trying to use like alternate to leather. But what I love about these boots is they're very comfortable. I can run in them, and they're very easy to take care of. So and my experience with them has been, if there was ever anything wrong, it was very easy to return them. It was very easy to get them to replace it. So everything was very quick. The only negative of dealing with them is that I have to pick up the shoes from one of their locations. Is that I can give you hundreds of examples, Chris. So it's up to you.
I think that was really good, and I think it's important for everyone who's on this call that you exactly like Uday, you think about something that gives you a positive feeling. Try to identify why that is, right? If you're able to be as eloquent as Uday, are you able to put it to words? Can you say why I like it more than just to say, well, it's a good product, right? Is it the everything experience? Is it the fact that you feel like they have very educated staff, for example? Like I remember from my own part, if I'm to share that, when I go for shoes, for example, I really care about the fact that there's a physical store, right? I'm a person that can definitely go online to shop, but I like the fact that there's a physical store. I can talk to real people and they can answer all the dumb questions that I have. And the fact that they are super polite, very knowledgeable makes me come back, because I really appreciate when people put that time. So that's now you know more about Chris, but maybe everyone has a different definition. That's what I'm saying. Maybe some of you are saying, like, no, Chris, I would never go to a physical store, but when it comes to an online store, this is what matters to me, right? So, and depending on where you are, if you have a physical store, if you got an online store, just try to think about this. And maybe it also makes sense to talk to your friends, your family, and other people that you know might be part of your customer segment, what good looks like to them. Because if you do your homework here, you might actually get a lot of people, because one of the most powerful things out there is actually word of mouth. That people say, this store here by Uday is fantastic because he's doing all the right things, right? So if you do your homework trying to figure out what people really appreciate within various customer segments, I bet you will see that in the bottom line in your profit. Speaking of profit, let's talk about money. We always have to talk about money, right? Because most of us are not living on a trust fund. I wish I did, but I don't. So let's talk about pricing strategy and how having a strategy really helps you make sure that you have people who pay for your product because they think they can afford it. Because there are different ways that you are conveying, right? If you got too high of a price, you give the impression that, oh, no, this is not for me. Or you're saying you're actually a luxury brand, in which case it makes sense to have a high price. Or what if you're underselling yourself and your price is so low that people are saying, well, I think what you're selling, Chris, is really bad. It's probably bad quality because otherwise the price would be different. So regardless of what you do, people will have association associated to where you put your pricing. And it really sets the tone, as I was saying, and it helps you to determine whether your business is actually profitable. And it also helps attract investors because they might actually say, well, you know what, Chris, I think you're charging too much, or I don't think you charge enough. So really finding the correct price or pricing models, because you might have more than one, is an important thing. And it helps you to differentiate you from a competitor, right? So it's not only about the product you're offering and all the different features, but it is a identifying factor of why you. There are some best practices here when it comes to setting the right price, because it's not a simple thing to do, because you always honestly in real time almost you need to reevaluate what your prices should be. Just look at hotels, for example, right? We all know that when we go to a hotel and we try to book a hotel, there was this big vendor thingy in town and 1 million people wanted to look at cars. I had that happen to me when I was trying to stay in Frankfurt for 3 months, and every single day I had a certain rate, but suddenly there was this big vendor exhibition thing in town and the rating was up by 2.5 times. So that happens, right? And that might even happen to your product. So think about if there are external factors or other reasons why your pricing should be changing. So when it comes to best practices, think about premium pricing strategy. Do you charge a higher price because it's a better version of your product, or maybe you're adding support? Do you have some kind of penetration pricing strategy to make sure that you actually are able to sneak into the market in the first place? Maybe you are underselling yourself a little bit just so people try you out. Or do you have a value-based pricing strategy? So it's very clear to customers what kind of value you're offering. So the more value you add, the more reason why they should be paying more. Not just because it's premium plus, but you actually name to the customers, well, I'm adding this value and that value and that value. And because of the research I've been doing, I know that you will pay for that, right? So, and as I said, all of you who are running startup, you already know that you need to be very data-driven, right? You need to validate all of these things that you do. Revenue streams. This is something that we tend to overlook when it comes to startup. It might be super easy to say, you know what, I built an app, I put it on App Store, I'm just waiting for the money to come in, I've done my bit, I'm going to think about the next feature. But you might be missing a lot of opportunity because you think that way. So how are you selling product? Or maybe you are selling advertising, right? Many ways to get some kind of money in. Or maybe there's a subscription. So instead of people paying a one-off for $1 or $7 for buying your app on App Store, maybe you're saying, well, if you pay $2 monthly or $1 monthly, and there's 1,000 of you, I'm actually making a lot of money. Or maybe there's some affiliate marketing, or maybe there's some consulting. So don't limit yourself. Yes, you might have picked 1 or 2 of these to have something to reason around, but think about how this grows over time and be prepared to reevaluate. And of course, we're talking about money in, but now it's more money out, because you need to understand what costs you have. If you don't understand this, your business is going to go, belly up pretty soon. So that means that you need to understand what fixed costs you have, that there's no way that you can take those away. You need to understand what costs are variable and for how long. And you also need to understand overhead costs. And part of this is also noting down how many goods you sold, salaries are usually very expensive, a very big part of a startup, and other expenses that you might have. So the more you understand this, the more you understand whether you need to change the pricing strategy, maybe sell different products, maybe even have more sales channels. So here's an example to make it more tangible. So think about you are hiring people for $50,000. Or think about your office space. Do you actually need to pay for something in the central of London, or are you good with working from home? And even if you do, are you accounting for the fact that you're spending electricity and water and a lot of other things that's going to cost you extra? What about technology? What about licenses? And this is where I'm mentioning Founders Hub in the beginning, right? A lot of the software you're going to need for application development or sales is actually free if you're part of us. So this is a bit of a plug. So even if you're part of Founders Hub or some other incubator, make sure that they offer you things like this. Software technology cost shouldn't be a big thing when you're a startup. But of course, advertising and marketing, everything costs, right? I mean, if you go to Facebook, you have to pay for ads. If you do the same thing with Google, you have to pay for ads. So think about if you can be smart about this. Is there maybe an ability to use a free LinkedIn Premium and do some ads this way? So think about first, what are the free things that you can do? And then, of course, you know, as well as I do, that sooner or later you need to pay someone for ads. And also think about whether you need to retain legal and professional services. This might not be a thing for you, but maybe it will, depending on whether you need to buy a property, for example. And there's always this miscellaneous, right? You don't know what costs are going to come up, but it's kind of good to budget for it. So you're not completely like, oh my God, this bill came out of nowhere. You know, my business is really going to suffer for it. But just having a notion of what this is and, you know, do very reoccurring follow-ups to make sure that this is the truth. This is what you know that your company costs to run. And of course, we need to talk about balancing act, right? You need to balance your cost structure, all the money going out that leaving your account with the pricing, which, you know, constitutes the money coming in. So what is the perfect balance for your company? How much do you need to make not to lose money? And also one thing that I want you to think about is we always go in the wrong place when you think about the cost for acquiring a customer. We might think, well, it costs $10 to acquire a customer, and that customer is going to make me $12. So that's a $2 profit, right? But imagine now that a customer costs you $1,000 and they are actually going to spend $1,500. That's $500 worth of profit. So we might be afraid sometimes because the, you know, acquiring cost is so high, but don't go lost here. That's what I'm saying. Try to make the right evaluation, that don't stare yourself blind on the acquisition cost, because if you get these customers often enough, it might be worth that expenditure that you need to do initially. Go to market, right? We're looking at the market, we're looking at vegetables, we're looking at green. So I've done all my homework, right? I've looked at every single slide here, or the slides that make sense to me. I've done my validation, big check mark, Chris. I've described my business model, another check mark. I know my cost structure versus my pricing, so I definitely know that my business is making money, providing that electricity cost isn't going crazy or some other weird stuff happen. So now we're at go-to-market. You have your tech MVP, you have done your validation, and you're just ready to let the world see your fantastic creation. So now what? You need to be describing how that should happen, right? Because you need to know how that happens in steps, most likely. So an essential part of this is your roadmap. And you will see this in pitches, right? A lot of investors, they want to see your roadmap. Where are you going to be in 3 months, Chris? 6 months, 12 months? What features are you rolling out? What revenue streams? So these are all about changes over time that helps you reach that market and helps you penetrate that market and grow within that market. Do you know what that looks like? I can see a lot of early tech startups that this is a slide they forget to add, but I know from what I've seen from Oxbridge, you all have that slide. So good job on you all. But good can always be better. That's what I'm saying. The more detailed you are on that go-to-market plan, the better. So here's an example plan, right? The example plan would say how to identify target customers. That's really important. How to have a positioning statement. We talked about positioning, how to differentiate yourself, how you have a marketing plan. Do you exactly know what strategies and tactics you're using to acquire new customers or, generate more profit? Do you have a sales plan? So you understand, your cost and sales and everything else. And do you also have a plan? And this is most important of all because you're so data driven. Do you have a plan for measuring results so you know when to pivot? The better you are at this, the more you can pivot because you're getting signals that something works versus doesn't work. So I would argue to say that monitoring is one of the most important things you do. And with all that time I've spent with e-commerce over the years, I can tell you there's not a thing that they don't track, that they don't look at a dashboard for. And I think that's a good habit for all of you to have as well. Make sure you have a dashboard, a real-time dashboard if you can. exactly understanding what happens when there's a sales or some other signals. Maybe there's real-time information in the world that you need to know about that might actually affect the sales result of what you're trying to do. So the more data sources you can have, the better, I would argue. And we talked about market segmentation a little bit, and this is really about you understanding that there's more than just this one customer, right? So the more you understand that customers are different, that they come in segment, and identifying those segments, the more efficient you're going to be, and you will get that appropriate response, hopefully, when you add a new feature. So you don't add a feature that none of your segments want, or the wrong segments are saying, I don't want that, or I do want that, and you're being all surprised. So the more you know of these segments, the better. And let's just look at the segment so it's very clear what I mean. So looking at properties like age, like geography, like income, subject area, technology platform, and so on, looking at these properties, you might be able to identify this type of information with your customer, and you might see different behavior. So if it really matters to you that they are in there using your app for 1 hour or 4 hours, and you're thinking, well, if I drive that to 6 hours per day or per week, then you're driving a behavior in the right direction. And you want to be able to identify who are these people. This is not easy, right? Data is one of the most valuable things we have out there, and getting that data for your customer segment might actually be difficult, but please try, right? And this could be information that you're asking them for when they become your customer, or maybe this is something that brings them some kind of benefit if they tell you that I'm within this age bracket. So try to identify that, try to follow up on it, and exactly understand what's going on. I did this change, and now my 20+ age bracket hates me, right? So maybe roll back that change. That's what I'm saying. So just knowing the behavior of your customers at all time based on their, market segmentation is important. And I think we are pretty late in this presentation, but a good lab to do for yourself is to use Copilot or use ChatGPT. Ask it what market segmentations might exist, because there's a lot of existing data already. Usually you're not in a completely new business that no one has heard of, but it's a known business. So you can just ask it for what are the best practices within my area, what are the common segments. So please use that AI thinking partner again and just say, what is true in my area? Can you show me reports that I can trust? Can you show me books or whatever I need? Show me the motions that I need to find out this information. Right, so let's also see what Anne-Claire was saying there. We would love your feedback on everything we're talking about today, and also things that we will talk about in the future. It's super important for us that we're giving you the right content, that we're creating value. This is our value prop, just to quote this presentation today. But I want you to also think about how you're selling your product, because it matters, right? Define and try to identify your channel. And this is one of the last things I'm going to mention as part of this workshop presentation. Just think about it having more than one channel. It's super easy to think, hey, I got a website, that's where I get my users. Or could you actually be at some kind of marketing fair, or maybe on social media, or maybe you could sell through telemarketing? I don't know. But please consider more than one channel of selling your product, because I think there are more than one channel that you could contemplate. Or at least go through this list of channels and say, this works for me now, maybe later, this will never work, or this will work, or I might actually contemplate to be using this and that channel. So please do your due diligence, go through these channels and think about, I'm actually going to add 1 or 2 more channels to this. So in summary, this is my last slide. Learn to describe your business once you've validated it. Start with a validation. If you haven't done that, don't proceed before you've done so. Describe your business, understand your business model, and understand the value proposition. What value are you offering? And try to find out more about your customers as your business grows, or even now, and really understand what costs you are, what pricing you have, so you understand when you make money. And also understand the plan, and this is your plan alone. How would you go to market? Are you doing so in steps? Are you doing so in different markets? What tools are you using? What people, what partners? So with that said, I'm not actually going to go into brand, because I'm thinking that's something that's super important for you all to build a brand, but it's just going to be too much today. So if you're interested in hearing about brands, I think we could have a separate lecture on that alone. But this is my last slide for today. So I'm going to leave over to Anne-Claire. Do you want to drive home any points before we say bye today?
Thank you, Chris. No, if there is, again, Chris mentioned a lot of elements regarding Microsoft for Startup Founders Hub. Again, this is a platform that you have access to. This is free equity. You get up to 150,000 worth of cloud credits on top of OpenAI credits as well. Really, the idea is to help you build your AI business onto our cloud. You have technical support as well as business support through Azure Pairing, as well as expert network. It's quite a big platform. So really the idea is for you to get access to it and give us your feedback. If you have any question related to Microsoft for Startups, I will be your contact. And thank you very much for Uday and Chris for organizing that workshop today.
Right, and thank you, Uday. Thank you for playing with me for the interactive part. Really appreciate your input. And we want to, as Anne-Claire said, we want to make sure that we deliver value to you. We want to make sure that we get your feedback so we can keep on delivering value and the right content. And also, please contemplate Founders Hub. That is completely free. We don't want any part of your IP. We want to build a relationship with you for many, many years. So hopefully we can just prop you up and say, look at how awesome this business is. And we've done so on occasion. We even help people with fundraising. So just know that we are here for you for many, many years.
Thanks so much, Chris. This has been fantastic. I don't know if we have time for just maybe one question from the audience.
No, I don't have a question. I just wanted to make sure that you'll share the slides afterwards, if that's possible. Yeah.
Yep.
Very useful talk. And thank you very much.
I'll be making the recording for the video available for the next 2 weeks for everyone who's attended.
Fantastic.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we can share the slides, right, Anne-Claire? We can send that to Uday as well. Great. Yeah, as I said, hugely appreciate everyone coming today. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully this was something that landed well with you to capture you where you are. And yes, as Anne-Claire was sharing, please fill in the feedback form. We definitely want to know what we're doing well, how we can improve, how we can keep on delivering value. Really appreciate the partnership here today. So you want to say some
Likewise.
completing words, maybe?
Well, this is the second of the workshops we've done with you, Chris, and it's been a real treat. I think this is tremendous value. For me, it's even a nice refresher. I've never done it with ChatGPT before, but this is going to save a lot of people a lot of time.
Right, that's really great to hear. Right, so I think this was all for today, but next week we'll have a storytelling workshop. So hopefully that helps you understand how you can incorporate storytelling. And just sharing shortly, I was on a fundraiser for one of our companies within the Pegasus, which is a sub-program within Founders Hub. And this person, he was using storytelling. I can tell you all the people here was just hooked on his pitch. The first 2 minutes of his pitch was a masterclass in storytelling. I can tell you a lot of founders were like, how can we, collaborate? How can we support you? So storytelling is a huge thing for startups. If you master that, everything can be mastered with enough practice. That will make a huge difference. And Utkarsh, because you're on this call, you're a great example of doing storytelling. So if you wonder how to do it, I'm just going to point to him, but otherwise I'm going to point to the next week also where you can learn more.
Yeah, so for everyone who's not familiar, Utkarsh is one of the winners of the Oxbridge-AI Challenge. He's absolutely fantastic, and he's really making massive changes in legal tech with use of AI.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for coming today, and look forward to seeing you the next week, hopefully.
Thanks, Hector. Thanks, Chris. Have a great one, and hopefully see you guys soon. If not sooner than Monday.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Rory,